Hey everyone, we got this is Coach Dave March, and this is a special edition of Growth Mindset Podcast where we're going to be speaking more about health and wellness, and we're speaking more about create more of a well-being in our lives, what we can do to create better, healthy diets. And we have a special guest on today, which is Kett. Kett is the owner of Sacred Rootz. And of course, I have my wonderful co-host, Patrick Brown. And yeah, we're going to jump right to it. All right. And we're back. So let's start this off with Kett. If you want to introduce yourself, talk a little more about, Sacred Rootz, just to introduce yourself to the people here.
Hey, okay. Well, greetings. My name is Khet. Most people just call me Kett, and that's why I'm the owner and master herbalist of Sacred Rootz, located in Somerville. And we've been in business for about 13, but I've been a herbalist for maybe a little over 20. Maybe 20, maybe 25. But so it's something that's been I grew it's something that I grew into my passion, right? Because when I was younger, it wasn't something that I wanted to do. I didn't see myself doing this. I wanted to be the school teacher or NFL football player, man. That was what I wanted to be when I was a child. So, the how fate has it, when you are around herbs and and you sick yourself, because that's really what happened, man. Me being sick, me dealing with asthma, me dealing with real bad allergies. I always had herbs in our cabinet. So this is something that my parents always had and really used to attempt to heal me. And I don't know. Well, I can't say it wasn't working. And the funny thing about it, because when they would make it, like when my mother would make it, I would pretend to drink it. I didn't really even drink it, to tell you the truth. So I never knew if it would work or not. In my mind, usually I thought that it tastes better when I made it. So I made it. You know what I'm saying?
Gotcha.
I took a bunch of herbs, man. I just started putting that stuff in a pot. Back then I didn't know what it was. Now I know what it was. It was slippery elm, and this was for asthma. It was slippery elm, it was chickweed, pardiaco. Those were the three main herbs. No, in life everlasting, sir. And those were the herbs that I mainly was using. Now that
But I was just trying to remember. Yeah, I've heard of life everlasting.
yeah. Real natural, wild staple in the low country, life everlasting. Or some people call it life molasses, depending on what region you are in the low country. Some people even call it rabbit tobacco. But I use those plants, you know what I mean, to heal me. It got to a point where I didn't need the pump anymore. I didn't need a pump anymore. When the springtime came, I didn't, had my allergies really wasn't messing bothering with me anymore. So my parents kind of seen like, oh, okay, something that's happening, you know what I mean? And but what I did, that the missing part was, because a lot of us grew up where our parents or grandparents or somebody, it was herbs always around us. We always had plants around us. We would have to go pick this boy and bring it back here, whatever. So we had that all around us. But what we but the missing link to that was our diets, what we ate.
Man, hey, that's big. But yeah, I was gonna chime in and say, yeah, bronchitis for me and cat foot, life everlasting. They put that thing in a pot, add some molasses with it, and yeah, just drink like every year, and it really knocked that bronchitis out after about, I would say about the second year when I would normally get my bad coughs and colds.
Yeah.
It was gone.
Yeah, I'd like to put a piece in there too. I do feel like my background in herbs got involved because of originally, I think, because more of like ADHD. For me, it was just like I couldn't focus. I was in 100 different directions, and that was my introduction to herbs. Because we're all talking about like you have bronchitis, allergies, things like that. I think my first introduction was yeah, like I was using, like I didn't want to use pharmaceutical drugs when I was young. There parents would always try to put their kids on Ritalin, which would be like kiddie cocaine. You know, I didn't want to take that, especially for a kid to take the pharmaceutical drug like that. And so that was really my introduction to the world of herbs. You know, I first would take just like ginseng, um, and that sort of stuff. And then, you know, over time got more involved, got more interested, you know, and another thing, like caffeine, coffee didn't work that well for me. I started looking at alternatives. And so I got really into yerba mate. Yerba mate is a great alternative to coffee, and that worked a lot better for me. And also for the focus, it worked a lot better than coffee. Coffee just went right through me. Yeah.
I remember I dated a girl who had ADHD while I was in college, and I didn't know. And I think, was it Adderall? Did he use Adderall?
Adderall, yeah.
I think it was Adderall. She used to smoke, or she was, like a decent smoker. But she used to say that she would take the herb to kind of calm her down, but her parents really pushed her to use the Adderall. And she was at my house, and she used the Adderall, dude, and I'm talking about she's kind of hippie, like, like a real bubbly personality. Let's chill. Let's go to the park and color. And I was like, we're 20 something, but it didn't matter. But once you took that Adderall, it's like you could be standing on fire and she would just look at you and just go right back down to working. It was crazy. I threw it out the window. I was like, here's the weed. Roll up. That psycho look, that lost, like, I don't care about life at all look in your eyes. I was like, I can't have that in my house. Just smoke. Yeah, just roll up. So yeah, I think a lot of those pharmaceutical drugs, they do what they're supposed to, but then they do extra. I think there's always some extra underlying thing that they're not always forthcoming with what these drugs really.
The side effects is what you're talking about.
Yeah.
It's like the side effects is that's what we're all kind of afraid of, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
Those side effects.
But you know the thing about that, like pharmacy and pharmaceutical and all that thing, it's like it's twofold, right? Because it's not only physical aspect, but also from the spiritual aspect, right? Say when you look up the Greek word, the Greek definition for pharmacy, you're going to see the word pharmakia, right? Which means witchcraft, all right? So this means witchcraft, right? And then and the pharmacist, it is it's still in that same ballpark, which means like poisoner or warlock, excuse me. You see what I'm saying? So when you see that, and you're like, okay, well, out of all things, why would they name this, right? You know what I'm saying? Knowing the definition, you know what I mean? And then you have to go to what they call Rite Aid, right? And you go to Rite Aid, but when you look at Rite Aid, it's spelled R-I-T-E. It's not spelled R-I-G-H-T, right? So Rite Aid is short for ritual, okay? So now you go into this pharmacy, right? Or this get your spell or what they call prescription, right? And now you get the spell, right? And now you begin to become you I don't want to call it hallucinogenic, but what you are is you're not yourself anymore.
Exactly.
So now you are under the spell, right? Because they have you drugged up. Most I will say about, man, you know what? Maybe 75, and that's a big percentage, but 75% of this country are drugged up, whether it's the actual pharmaceutical that you're taking or even the drugs that's in the food, right? So
I think you're being
So many chemicals in the food.
5%. I think you're being nice.
I could be, and I could be a nice man. I'm sure I am. The only reason why, because I ain't counting me, and so it could be much higher, yeah, indeed. But so we looking at it from a spiritual aspect and a physical aspect, and honestly, it's a sense of control, that way, because you're not thinking right anymore. You're not thinking right. You're not in your right mind state. So when we see crazy things that may happen in the society or in the world, it's like, why do they do that? How, you know what I mean? You can't even fathom to why this, why did this mother or why did this father kill your whole family, and like, like it's something deeper, than just I had a bad day and this is what it's gonna be. It's like, no, you know what I'm saying? It's a little deeper than that, and so I just say that to say, like, thinking about, pharmacies and things like that. This is, you coming away, you're drifting further away from nature, something other than what you are naturally. Because I don't think naturally you would think
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, and it's like what I've heard, what I've known is, like, for example, Tylenol. Tylenol comes from like the willow tree bark.
aspirin.
Aspirin, yeah, aspirin, yeah. Aspirin comes from willow tree bark, and it's like, but it's so far removed, it's so far away from nature. Most people don't even know that. Yeah. So that's a point I want to make.
What I was gonna say is, but all of that, us moving away from natural medicine
Natural medicine.
to pharmacology and stuff, all came from the Rockefellers. The Rockefellers made a smear campaign against natural medicine because they wanted to sell more oil, because all of those pills are petroleum based. Which I don't think you're supposed to be eating oil. That just off rip. So if your cures are petroleum based, you're already ingesting something that's not good for the body. And yeah, I realized that when we were when they considered them medicine men and shamans, and they were going into these jungles to quote unquote civilize these people, they were really going in there to find out what herbs and medicines they were using so they could bring it back concentrated and put it in a pill form. Never thinking that, like we were told one story and never really understood that they were really disrupting, you know what I'm saying, people's way of life and stealing their ideas and then selling us snake oil. So,
And that's where the side effects come from, because now you taken this plant out of out of its environment, out of its nature, and you isolate the chemical that you deem this is for pain, right? Thinking about the white willow bark, right?
yeah.
You take the aspirin, for pain, headaches, blah blah blah. But they use the salicylic acid. So they look at the salicylic acid from the white willow tree or the bark, and they say this is what numbs pain, et cetera, helps with headaches. So let's just take this. You know what I'm saying? Never mind the other chemicals that are actually the source, or big guys, right? So these chemicals in this white willow have to synergize together to make that salicylic acid work. And if you just take that out, that's like looking at your hand and saying we use the thumb to grip, so let's just use the thumb. You know what I'm saying?
Back.
The
Great
thumb
point.
is good. The thumb is no good by itself. It needs the other hand, other fingers in order to grip. But that is how they look at it. So they will take that. But what happens is now you're going to have a side effect. So now that same aspirin that came from that white willow bark is now going to cause blood to thin, which is now going to cause strokes, cause heart attack, right? All those things, because naturally your blood is not supposed to be thin to that level. And so that's the dangerous part of taking these things out of nature and extracting what you deem as this is what we need.
Yeah. That was they had a similar situation with turmeric, because turmeric cures, turmeric can treat cancer. You can't say cure. But anyway, turmeric treats cancer to where the cancer doesn't exist anymore. So they were trying to figure out what part of the turmeric, and they found one part of the turmeric that they considered as the main thing. But when they looked and tested each individual, each one of them had a percentage of destroying the cancer, and the isolated ingredient could not measure up to what the totality of just taking turmeric is. The reality is it's not marketable. If you tell people the whole turmeric, it's like, well, I'll just go plant some turmeric and that's it. It's like, wait a minute. We got to put it in a processed form so that we can make it seem like, yeah, well, you got turmeric, but you don't have turmeric EX. Which is,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I also like that. I had a friend that was was working in hospitals, and this was like maybe 15 years ago. I was talking to him about it, but I never forget what he said, because because I told him these things about food as medicine and all these things that we're talking about, and he's like, yeah, but if I go to one of my patients in the hospital and I tell them, I got some antibacteria for you, it's onions. They're gonna laugh at me. You're just gonna say they're just gonna tell me I'm gonna eat onions. And it's because it is good. It's good antibacterial. Just onions. Just you're gonna chop some onions. That's what you're gonna do. I got all these. I got all these problems. I'm sick. I'm in the hospital. You're gonna give me onions.
No,
I literally went through that a couple of days ago. Somebody called. Oh, my baby has like 100 something fever. Blah blah blah. What herbs do you have? I said, you don't need anything. Just, do you have an onion? Yeah, but I said, okay, take those onions, put it in a sock, put it under their foot, under their sock. And he was like, what? I said, yeah, just do it. And
don't try to understand. Just do it.
people came down like that. They called back, next day, like, yo, I thought you were just joking. Because sometimes I do joke with my clients,
So that's exactly what I'm saying. That's exactly what I'm saying. That's exactly what
I was going to say it's because they intentionally removed our mind from believing food could heal us. And I also think this is why the doctor's courses are the smallest subject is nutrition. They don't teach doctors nutrition. And it might be because they will have a conscience. Because could you imagine if you really did take a nutrition course along with your pharmaceutical course and found all the foods that would counteract the drugs that you take, thus signifying the fact that these foods are equal to these drugs? And then you start realizing you give people this as side effects, but you could just give them a better diet and tell them to try that first. I had a doctor say that that's what they do, but they only give the pill out when the person shows that they don't have the discipline to change their lifestyle. The pills were created because they say a lot of people don't have the ability to just change their lifestyle. They'll continue with a bad lifestyle. So the pill is kind of like, I'll help you hide the damage you're already doing, but you're damaging your body. And I'm just the guy who hides the symptoms. So
I think that comes with, like, going back to what you're saying, lack of education. So they're not able to tell them about the lifestyle, because you barely even telling them about the disease or why this disease is happening, why this is that, what the cause of it. And it goes back to what you were saying about Rockefeller, because you have it was Rockefeller. Not only was it Rockefeller, but it was also Carnegie.
yeah, Carnegie.
They came together and they hired the guy Abraham Flexner, right? So you have what we call the Flexner report that most doctors, even back then and now, follows, right? So this Flexner report, it's a book too. I got the actual book, right? But it's literally telling you, like, look, this is how we're gonna do this. This is how you're gonna do it. This is the only way we're gonna be able to push these pills. Screw holistic health. You know what I'm saying? Because you got to think about it. If the first pills and all these things didn't come out to the 1930s, right? What were we doing then, right? So you had holistic institutions, you had all these things. And remember, in this time, in the 1930s, what was the big event that took place in America? The Great Depression.
Okay, yeah. Right.
So you talking about some billionaires who can come to these schools and say, hey, if you follow what we say do, we'll fund your school, right? Some schools kept their integrity and said, nah, we're good, right? You know what I'm saying? But hey, they weren't able to keep up. So eventually those schools closed. Even some holistic practitioners were jailed, even killed. You know what I'm saying? We seen that, you know what I mean, recently in years, right? So a lot of that stuff was, when you connect these dots, but that's why I don't blame doctors per se, because I know there's a lack of knowledge that you just don't know. You know what I'm saying? And sometimes, my thing is I wish that we could bridge a gap. You know what I'm saying? Some doctors are cool with it, man. Like I've worked with some doctors with my clients. Like they will say, "Hey, well, I'm dealing with this herbalist. Can you talk to him?" And I'm like, "Sure, I'll talk to your doctor." It is more so like, "Hey, what can we do?" I don't want to say, "Hey," because to a certain degree, I may say, "Yeah, you know what? If you can't give up this pork, then, you know, you might well take this pill." Because I don't know what the, you know what I mean?
Hey, I don't know.
Right? But if you willing to give up this pork, if you willing to do whatever, then you may not need this medication but so long. You can wean yourself off, you change your lifestyle, etc. You know, it's just a matter of trying to bridge a gap with these doctors. Sometimes you don't have that title. You know, it's like
Uh,
ego kicks in and there's what do you know? You only, you know what I'm saying? You
Yeah.
don't.
So, and just before we go into that, just to make a point on the doctors, right? What the doctors in the Western medicine is good for, I think, is acute issues. Very like it, like also like surgeries, stuff like that. Like if you broke your foot,
yeah.
good. Western medicine is good.
Yeah.
I don't want to put down the doctors completely. I think that there's
Yeah.
there's obviously some good parts of it. I think that the issue is really the chronic things that
Yes,
y-
chronic things are the problem. The trauma issue, the triage, the people who stitch you up and put you back together after you had a terrible accident. Absolutely, keep doing what you're doing. You're awesome. Thumbs up. But comes to quote unquote illnesses that are long term.
diabetes. Japan
Yeah,
doesn't have Japan doesn't have people like we have. People obese and stuff like that.
which brings us to when you mention that, I just want to say it brings us to our next topic because it
Yeah.
does say that countries have different diets, but also different chemical regulations
Mhm.
that are allowed in different countries. U.S., I think we're the worst. I don't know any other country that allows the things we allow in our food as preservatives and additives and natural flavors and
Yeah, like the red 40, yellow 5.
blue 32 hut, you know what I'm saying? It's like, so yeah, they put a lot of additives in our food, and what's worse is the kid cereal. Due to the bright colors, we are having autism, and they won't link autism to the food, but that's an won't touch it too much because obviously there are arguing reviews, and like you said, having the authority in people's mind. That's such a powerful word. When you was talking about spirituality, that's another word to me, like the author of your fate. If you have a will, then you should be the author, which makes you the authority of your life. But the minute someone else is your authority, then they start writing your will. They start writing which people can write you into death. Hey, I did the best I could. You only got 6 months to live. That's me as the author of your life. It's only in the moment that some people take the pen back and say, well, that's not your story to write. I'm going to go find something else, and they recover. And other people let you write the end and be like, well, I guess I got 6 months. And yeah. So it's that's a big thing. Authority. Who are you giving the authority to determines a lot about your health and where you're going in life. So
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, like with the what's happening now with at least in today's society we are looking at ultra processed foods, and I think that that's finally a good thing, that we're getting some awareness on that, because that's been a problem for many years. This the ultra processed foods. The whole idea of just like um why is like McDonald's or Burger King subsidized? Because you can't get a burger. You can't make a burger yourself for that amount of money, right? If you can go to the dollar menu, like you can get some lettuce and tomatoes and cheese and burger and bun. It's like there's no way, like there's no way that is not ultra processed, because
yeah,
there's no way that you can get that for yourself for $1 or $2.
absolutely. It's funny because someone was saying that someone said, well, I've worked at McDonald's in the farms and they use 100% ground beef. It said, but the key word is they use 100% ground beef, but it may be only 10% of the patty. I mean, I didn't know what else I used. I just said I used 100% ground beef, 10% to start off, and then 90% other crap, but it's still 100% ground beef that I put in there. So the marketing advertisements, the quarter pounders, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, y'all used 100% beef, but not for the entire patty. There must be the loopholes. You know, even Subway with the plastic in the bread, or Naked Juice had formaldehyde in the, you know what I mean? It's just like, who let these things through the door? And then we start to find out about the FDA, and at a time it was the head of Monsanto. The former head of Monsanto became the head of the FDA under the Obama administration. His name was Michael Taylor. And for me, I'm just going crazy about it. And I'm like, oh my God. And everybody is giving me the fluoride stare like, so? I'm like, do you not understand who Monsanto is? The Vietnam War, Agent Orange. These guys do poison, and he's head of what? No one cared. I was just like, wow. So yeah, trying to get people to change, or even we were talking about the chemicals. I think it's because we as Americans don't care enough. I think other countries petition, protest, care enough to get stuff out of their food. Us as Americans, because we're such a collective of people, we don't see each other as countrymen, so we don't feel each other's pain.
That's exactly what I was going to hit on. Yep.
We don't group. We don't organize. We a bunch of immigrants just trying to get it in, get to the bag. That's
what it is. It's a big melting pot, and a lot of it is based upon everyone is eating everyone else's food. Yeah, right. And what I mean by that is food that you may eat in this country may not be even genetically linked to you. Understand? Because
got to snap on that.
right, because you only see
Snaps.
Chinese people only going to eat what they know. They're going to eat their food. Italians are going to eat their food. Mexicans are going to eat their food. But let's say when it comes to the African, what they call African, so-called American, right? We eat every damn thing, right? You know what I'm saying? We're going to go to Little Italy. We're going to go to China. We're going to go everywhere and eat everybody.
Everybody food.
And what we subject to is what they would call soul food, which is pretty much, slave food, right? We just made it taste good,
If we take a pig intestines and people call it a delicacy.
like, you know what I mean? Like that's, but your mind stays like, well, wait, what? That's what we eat,
Yeah.
And so it's not linked to our body. What I'm gonna say is too that is exactly how you would diagnose diseases, right? By diagnosis the races. And you diagnose the race by paying attention to their elders, right? So if you look at, I don't care who it is, like if you look at the diseases of racist elders, you could tell them what they should not be eating, right? Because it's not linked to their genetics, right? You see, I was working with the Irish. He was an Irish guy. I knew he was Irish. His last name was like McDougal or something like that. So I'm like, yo, you're Irish though. You know what I'm saying? So I said, I know this gonna sound crazy, but you probably gonna have to lay off too much potatoes. You probably eat potatoes with almost everything, right? That's why you have diabetes right now. He's like, man, everybody in my family has diabetes. I said, I know because you eat way too much white potatoes. That is y'all's staple, you know what I mean? And you can do the same thing with Asians. They can say, oh, they have real bad arthritis. Well, they eat rice with everything. You see what I'm saying? And I could do it with every race because I could just look at the elders and I could say, hey, this is why they have arthritis. This is why you're gonna have the arthritis. So it's not necessarily um genetically passed down, right? But most so
Your diet
right, have been passed down.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just a chain effect. Food's just gonna make you think like, well, it's passed down. It's like, nah, the food's been passed down.
Yeah.
So
Also, the food that they had back then is not the same. The food that they had back then is not the same. That's such a big point. Like I can't stress that enough.
So again, it's stuff like that. When you start to realize stuff like that, it's like then you understand that you're under an orchestrated attack I mean, it can't be anything else but if food has changed, if it became less nutritious, we're supposed to be more technologically advanced, but our food is less nutritious. Our remedies and medicines do more damage to the body than healing. It's like, how we're advanced, but in what direction are we really heading? What is the end goal? I mean, us as the people think the end goal is for a better life for us, but the billionaires who run it, I think we should be asking them what is their end goal, because it doesn't seem like for us to thrive is the end result. If the companies are changing, the food's changing, the chemicals are added, we're kind of, it's like you put the evidence together, you can only come to one conclusion. You know what I mean?
Just straight material. Because when you travel, right, that's when you really get to see other people's thoughts, man. Like traveling. I've been to Africa. I've been to, Costa Rica. I've been to Jamaica. Been to different Mexico. I've been to Mexico. Been to different places where money is not like the money may be it's family,
Important.
like it's not number one. You understand?
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
I think here we are very materialized where we in this race, man, like you said, we don't really have a goal. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, it's like I agree that health is really wealth, right? But you need wealth to have health too. So it's kind of like here, it kind of goes hand in hand because this land is kind of barren. Like, you know what I mean? Like, if you go to other countries, man, they got fruit trees that you can just pick and eat.
I'm so glad you mentioned that, because
Trees around here, you know what I'm saying? I said,
He loves the fruit trees. That was a good point. That was a good point. I didn't even know. I don't think he even knows. He was so excited about that, Patrick.
only because when I was in Jamaica, the soursop trees were right on the side of the road. Like we're riding in the taxi. I'm like, and they thinking I'm tripping because they laughing at me. And I'm like, is that soursop like right there, like right out the window? It's like, yeah, it's just right there in the bushes. And it's blowing my mind because we pay for this elsewhere, and y'all got it just growing in the wild. And it wasn't until then I started to study and found out. Don't know how they did it, but I'm guessing it's some type of trail with some type of chemicals, supposedly in somewhere in the air. But the female trees in the United States have been being attacked for the longest. There was a time we used to get plums and blackberries and a whole lot of other snacks when we were younger. We could go up the road and down the road and find these wild plums. They're gone. And it's been saying that they have been putting something in the soil that what it does is it affects the biome, the bacteria. It doesn't do anything to the soil. It just, if you put silver down, silver kills bacteria. So if you kind of aerosol or nitrate, constantly,
Yeah.
the soil to degrade to a point where it doesn't support fruit. It can still support foliage.
Our soil is destroyed. Our soil, it's such a big point of our soil. Yeah.
And when you said that, it was like I was wondering the same thing, and someone gave me a report and said that it was because they actively was destroying all the female trees that could grow in the wild, so that we could never look to the forest as sanctuary. Man, I just go to the forest and eat off of fruit and liver. No, there's none. We killed them. They're gone. Go to the store. So yeah.
And that's something that, I always think about this myself. I'm like, okay, well, how are we to defend this country of ours if the citizens are weak, right? You want us to defend the country, but then you don't even feed us right. Like, how do you think we're gonna get our strength? You know what I mean? To fight for a country, like at the end of the day, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
That'd be, you know.
That's the fear that a lot of people have, is the realization that that's a good point. And the answer might be that they didn't even want, they want us to fall. Like, we're the fat cow in the world, that it's about time for us to get stuck like a roasted pig. And you know what I'm saying? Because even in this new digital market and a whole lot of other things, we're the ones everybody's feeding off of. And we don't have access, out. if David, I don't know if you into crypto, but like different markets and exchanges and things that other places in the world can use and move and make trades and buy things with crypto, we can't. It's all blocked out. But our investments in stuff like Bitcoin or trying our best continues to make finances for those who can trade in crypto. So they're able to, move in a way. So I feel like all the things that we're seeing and noticing is an intentional attack to degrade. I mean, we used to have to climb the rope and do athletic drills in gym. That was gym class. You actually had a gym test. Like if you weren't physically fit, you didn't pass. That would be considered cruel and unusual punishment today for a coach to say you failed because you couldn't run the laps. You couldn't climb the rope and run.
It's like, no, that's not how that's not how
Like,
life
nah,
works.
you lost. You lost. Just tell them straight. You didn't win. You're supposed to go 50 miles and you went 5. Sorry, you lost, sir.
Exactly. You fail and start over. Yeah. So
Oh man, that's funny.
So I would say after all of this, what do we do? Where do we?
Yeah, what are some solutions? What are some solutions? Are there any kind of herbs, any solutions, any classes that we can take, Kett? What can we do?
That's the main thing that I do. I like to do is educate, right? So we do classes once a month. Classes once a month on Saturdays, just to educate on whatever topic that the heavens may give me, or I may see something and I might be like, that's going to be the topic. Because sometimes it'll come to me by what comes into the shop, right? It might be a day where everybody's coming in for arthritis. And that's always my sign of, oh, okay, the class is going to be on arthritis this month. You know what I'm saying? Or the class is going to be on high blood pressure this month. Whatever, you know what I mean? But that's like that. I want to get my classes depending on the traffic that comes in and the prevalence of that, whatever that ailment is. I'm like, I always look at it as a sign. So anyway, we do classes once a month, and it's just to educate the people because, they all have these diseases, right? But when you talk to them, they really don't know what it is that they actually have. They don't know how it works, why they have it, how to heal it, right? And so for me, I always like to just draw a box around them. And what I mean by that, I say the how, the what, the why, and this is how we're going to heal it, whatever. You understand? So we do those classes once a month. We talk about the disease, what it is, and pretty much how to heal it and the steps that it's going to take to heal it. So it's really like a class it's like a class. It's almost like a free consultation, basically. Yeah. Going to that class is basically a free consultation, right? So you can learn how to heal yourself and your families.
Yeah. That's powerful, man. That's powerful because a lot of people, they try to sell. They try to sell every bit of information, and that shows that you actually care about the people and care about the community, that if you see a problem is arising, then you take it upon yourself to say, hey, all right, I need to make my people aware of how to stop this and help them in their life. Make you your own hero, savior in your own life, because that's what it's really about.
Yeah, and matter of fact, the next class is the 22nd of this month, back Saturday. And the class it's going to be a spring cleaning class, right? You got spring coming up, so we got, the pollen's going to come and et cetera, et cetera. We're going to get you ready, right? Not only how to cleanse yourself and prepare, for cleansing your body and cleansing internally, but also cleansing physically or spiritually, how to cleanse your house. When we was growing up, by the time spring come, you got to be done, that spring cleaning. You got that. Sweeping I'm talking about you washing the boards, the sweeping the top of the ceiling, like she's sweeping and cleaning everywhere. You're getting ready for the spring because down here, what they say, you don't get ready, you set the tone. You know what I mean, for the new year, because we understood that the new year was spring. You see?
All right. Dropping some knowledge there. Patrick got excited about that. Patrick actually got excited about that. He's all about that.
Everything is dead in the winter. That's never, we went by nature. We didn't go by, this, Gregorian calendar. Like, this is a calendar that can, push time up, push time forward. And we know time is nothing but a confirmation of existence, right? It's now. You understand? And my teacher always taught like, you got 60 seconds in a minute. But what happened to the first? How do you get 60 seconds? You know what I mean? Without 61st or moments, right? So you have to have a moment before you can have a second, right? So that moment is what comes first. And that's how they change time. But what that does, that also changes your frequency when you get on that. You know what I'm saying? Now you think you older than what you think you are. Why, man, I'm old, man. I can't. Nah, it's all in your mind. It's your perception of what you think time is.
Man, that's a major key, because when we're in spirituality, they always tell you try to be in the present moment, be alive, be aware. Time is the only construct that allowed you to even think about past and future. Animals don't have watches. So they're never thinking about the past or the future. They're always 100% in the very moment that they're in. But humans can go hours where we're drifting in something else, and we may be actively doing something, but we ain't here. We're like miles away. We're somewhere else. And it's because time says, you got that thing at 5 o'clock. You got that thing at 7 o'clock. And it's 1 o'clock right now. And you're already dreading the thing at 7 or 8 o'clock. So you're not even in the 1 o'clock moment, because you're already in the 7 o'clock moment. So you miss about 4 or 5 hours, all because time indicates where you should be mentally and what you should be preparing for. So that very construct did allow the spirit to leave the present and enter into the past, where some past brings you down, or the future makes you anxious, because you can never touch the things that you did already in the past, and the things that's coming up you're already anxious for because they haven't arrived, and you're never present. So yeah.
Speaking about
that, in a sense, and what I mean by that is when we understand who and what we really are, right? If you know that, listen, I am spirit, soul, ether, right? I am that. I'm not the physical body. I need this vehicle, obviously, to experience life, to feel quote unquote things. But I know what I am. So sometimes you can't go in the past, right? You can't go in the future, this and that. But this is when we start talking about quantum physics and quantum entanglement, things like that, right? But
Yeah.
of course, that's another topic in itself, but it still has to do with health, right? And this is what I teach. I teach this to my students because we have 9 parts of our being. And it's not in layers, but they all mesh together when you're talking about mind, spirit, body, soul, ether, oversoul, aura.
oh wow. Oh yeah. Oh wow. I don't.
Okay, real talk. I just realized our time is getting late. Definitely gotta.
Yeah, I didn't know you were gonna say that.
So much information we could build on. You
Though is when we add when all of these things are in alignment, that is what you call health. And what I mean by
we should have a button where you just like push dropping bombs. Dropping bombs. We should have a button we can press.
now, when we look up the word health, you're going to see health is the root word of health is what? Heal. Right?
Heal.
And heal. So heal is the French word for, it means helan, which means to restore or to make whole. You understand? True health is wholeness or oneness of one's true self, which is the mind, spirit, body, soul, ether, etc. You understand?
So we ain't been healthy. Most of us haven't been healthy since the day we were born, because oneness is something wow. Listen, whoever tuning into this, definitely, it's already been proven. You got to go to the classes. I got to pull up.
Yeah,
guys got information and on levels that holistically, it's just not the herbs. It's just not this. It is a holistic view. Spirit.
Remember when he said oversoul? I remember when he said oversoul. I said, that was
quantum.
That's a whole nother level.
Yeah, double slit experiment. All these. Listen, so I just want to say, as far as for me, this guy, he's on it. He's on it. He's a great place to get the knowledge and information that you need to heal yourself. Please check it out. Sacred Rootz. Absolutely. Anything else that you want to drop or give to the people?
No, just come check me out. At Sacred Rootz. We're located in Somerville, 908 Bakers Bridge Road in Somerville. The website, sacredroots.com. We're on Instagram at sacred_roots. And just, free information on the website, obviously, but definitely come check out the classes. Matter of fact, this Sunday, I don't know when this is going to air, but this Sunday we have a Reiki clinic free for the community to come out. So definitely, if you've never experienced Reiki healing before, we always do it, every 3 months or so. So this Sunday on the 16th, it's free for the community to get like a 10-15 minute session. And we ask that all practitioners of Reiki, no matter the level, come out and help us, help share,
I gotta tell my queen that when I met her in Singapore, I was 30, and I knew she was something special because for my birthday, she got me Reiki healing. And no woman, no family member, nobody in my life would even think about me enough to know, like, I know what I'm gonna do for your birthday and get me Reiki healing. It was this lady who was a practitioner with Ganesh and Hinduism, and she did Reiki for me, and I felt amazing. And yeah, like, so it. Let's just say it works. I know for me, it cleared a lot, and it worked for me. So yeah, listen, man, you got your hand in everything. I appreciate you, Kett.
I appreciate y'all, brothers, man. Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks everyone for your long attention here. We got into some great topics, and stay tuned for our next episode on the Growth Mindset Podcast.
Peace.
See you later.